All right. In this video, I want to talk about the church and home churches. Now, this is how it actually started out, and this is actually starting up again, where people are getting away from going to the church buildings, they're getting away from the 501c3 organizations, and they're meeting at homes. And this is actually a very good thing. We've been mixing with the world and we need to actually separate from that. It's got to the point where the churches think that some building is the church and they have to go by this denominational name. That's the church. And they need to become 501c3 organizations so that they can be tax exempt with the government. And that's not how it has to be at all. You can do this, like you see in this picture here, and have home churches. There's different groups who are actually doing this now around the world. Different places are doing it differently, where uh, some places are having it where they have just a group of around 12 people, and when they start to meet together and they pray about new people coming in, when it starts to grow, they'll break off into two different groups, and sometimes they'll interchange which people will go to which home so that everybody's, you know, knows everybody and is connected to everybody. But the groups they keep small, like Jesus and his 12 disciples, right? Keep the small groups, but of course you interact with bigger groups and the groups can interchange. Everybody gets to know each other and everybody is fellowshipping and worshiping God together, right? Like Jesus said, where there's two or three of you gathered together, there I am. So even if you have a group of just the two of you, then Jesus is there with you. So we don't have to have these buildings. Those are not necessary. We don't have to be 501 organizations. That is not needed. You don't have to register with the government. You don't have to have a denominational name. You could just be Christians, right? I believe the Bible. You believe the Bible. Let's come together. Let's study together. Let's worship God together, right? That's how Jesus did it. He wasn't part of the established church. He called his disciples away, and they were just a ragtag group. He didn't establish some kind of organization where you had to come to this certain building and you had to pay tithes and be called by a certain name. It's not how it was, right? And then when Jesus left, the apostles, they established other churches. Now, notice how the church is broken up into two different subgroups. There's the church as a whole, which is all the believers, makes up the church, the bride of Jesus. And then you have the churches, which the local assemblies of people. Like, this is the church, even though you and I are not in it, right? This is the church of their area. I don't know, Springfield, Arizona, right? And then there's your Springfield, Massachusetts, right? That's your church. I'm just using Springfield because I think there's a Springfield in every state. So that's the church for each little local city and that state or whatever, right? And there could be, again, one city could have 3 or 4 meeting groups like this. And what's great about this is that the government has no say in it. The government is not tracking you, right? They don't know if you're coming into this certain building. They don't know if you're registered with this certain denomination. They're not keeping track of what that denomination's preaching and not preaching. You all can come together and discuss things on your own, right? Another thing is they might look at this guy right here as the pastor, right? But that doesn't mean he has to take control and he's the one giving the sermons every week or however often you meet. You're like, this week it could be this guy. He's leading a discussion or a teaching about something. And then maybe this guy here, even though looks like he might be a teenager, but still, sometimes God inspires the youth. And different people would lead the discussion or bring up different topics. And sometimes it's just the guy everybody looks up to doing a sermon. Sometimes it's not, right? Sometimes it's about praying for one another, praying for others. Maybe you just coming together because you want to praise God, sing praises to his name, right? It doesn't have to be robotic, right? And you don't have to even meet in a home. You could be meeting at a park, at a lake, at a river, wherever, sitting up, hiking up on a mountain, right? Like Jesus would have sermons on mounts and whatnot, right? So groups like this are actually been starting up. People are getting away from not just the government and the government's eye and the government's say, but also the 501c3 organizations calling themselves Christian denominations. People are breaking away from that too. And it's a good thing. It's not wrong. It's not bad. It's not. It's exactly how Jesus operated. It's how the apostles operated. It's how the early church operated. It's not until they started mingling with the world that all of a sudden they started having to have money. And they had to establish a church building where everybody would have to come to this building every week, right? And then all of a sudden, when the churches grew, all of a sudden we needed one head over all the churches. And you put this king bishop, the bishop of bishops, right? And they created all this stuff, a hierarchy, and completely just changed everything and controlled everything about what the people are getting into and what they're talking about, what they're discussing, what they're learning about, and all that stuff. It doesn't have to be that way. So I just want to make this video putting my 2 cents on that and talking about it. And this is actually more of how I operate myself. So I've actually had Catholics kind of condemn it, but it's weird how they condemned it. When I told them about how I operate, they were like, "Oh, you think you're the early church," and started going on about it. And I was like, I didn't say anything about that. I just said this is how I do things. And they were just like, they know what it meant because they know they don't operate like the early church. These Catholics, they are a completely different structure, completely tied into the world, completely paganized, and they know it. They just don't like to admit it, and they got a lot of pride. So when they heard of groups doing this, it was like upsetting to them because it's like you're doing what Jesus and the apostles did, and not only that, you don't have a denomination for me to attack, right? Because that's what a lot of people do. You talking to them and you show them an error of their beliefs. One of the first things they're going to do is like, what denomination are you? Because they're not going to admit that they're wrong. No. What they're going to do is they're going to try to find something wrong with you and be like, okay, now you shut up and don't talk about what's wrong with my belief because this is what's wrong about yours. It's not about, hey, let's come to the truth. It's about, no, this is my team. I don't care if it's wrong. Your team is wrong too. And I'm going to show you why, because if you're a Lutheran, then this is the problem. If you're Calvinist, this is the problem. If you're Baptist, this is the problem. If you're a Methodist, this is the problem, and so on and so forth. But it's like, well, if you just break away from that and be like, well, I'm actually not relying on a denomination. It's actually, honestly, Bible alone. Then all of a sudden they got nothing because they can't attack the Bible, even though some of them do, whether directly, indirectly, or sometimes seemingly unintentionally. They end up attacking it because they disagree with it. But I'm kind of rambling on now, so I'm just going to end this video here. You get the gist of what I'm saying. Thanks for watching. Take care. Oh, last thing is that this is going to be more of a thing to do, so I would say to start doing it, because as persecution picks up and the state wants more and more control, you want freedom, especially of religion, and to be able to talk about what you want to talk about and learn about what you want to learn about. This is how you're going to have to do it. And it's going to be hard to do things about this when you're just meeting in random homes, right? You're not going to a local church building where the government can go right to you and break it up. If they don't know where you're all going and what have you, and what days you're meeting, what times you're meeting, nothing they can do. Especially, like, you don't have to go every Sunday. You can be going every Monday this month, every Wednesday next month, every Sunday next month. And that makes it even harder for anybody to come in and break it up and know where you're going to be, what time you're going to be there, right? So, yeah, thanks for watching. Take care.